while there's a lot going on politically currently in the country, and there may be several news channels that are focusing on what's happening in Bihar and what's breaking right now, there's something even more important, even more private to each and every one of us that's happening in the country that I believe personally is more important. The Supreme Court is examining whether or not we have the right to privacy and whether that right is fundamental. What does it mean to have a fundamental right? It means basically that no government can ever form a law or a rule or a regulation that in any way impeaches a fundamental right. That fundamental right will always stand. As of now, the right to privacy is not mentioned in our constitution. This entire thing popped up because of the Aadhaar plan. The fact that we're being asked to link Aadhaar to so many different things, giving the government access to information that a lot of people believe is beyond the purview of what the government should be asking for. As the Aadhaar privacy debate is being heard by the Supreme Court, the centre, and these are important arguments, the centre has said that your right to privacy is not absolute. The centre, in fact, told the Supreme Court today that the right to privacy may be considered a fundamental right, which means they're doing a flip-flop from what they had said earlier, but all aspects of privacy cannot be put under the fundamental rights category. In fact, let's listen in to our reporter Meenakshi, who's on the ground at Supreme Court and was attending that entire proceeding today. She's going to tell us what happened, and we're going to find out what this means for you and me. This is Meenakshi.
Well, that is correct. The government side today had its turn to present its arguments before the 9-judge bench. It is a all-powerful 9-judge bench. Almost half the composition of the Supreme Court was devoting its time to this issue. And the attorney came in for a bunch of tough questions from the top court. It was the apex court wanting to understand the government's position. Viewers will recall that on the earlier date of hearing, it was the government which had taken a completely hardline approach to this issue of privacy. It had gone on to submit that privacy is not a part of fundamental rights. However, today the government softened its stand a bit. The government told the Supreme Court that certain species of the right to privacy, aspect of privacy, which was not in conflict with the larger question of social justice, was something which can be acknowledged as being part of fundamental right. However, if this particular aspect of privacy came in conflict with the larger question of welfare or the larger question of social welfare, perhaps it would not be so open and shut. That was the government's position. The bench wanted to understand from the government as to how, even if it was acknowledging privacy in a minuscule way as being a part of fundamental right, how could it then go on to say that privacy could not be elevated to the status of fundamental right? So clearly the government was pushed on the back foot by the Supreme Court with some very tough questions which the attorney found somewhat difficult to explain. The government retaining its position that when it comes to welfare, when it comes to the larger question of social welfare will adopt a dominant role and privacy will assume a subservient role. This clearly not sinking in very well with the Supreme Court. The hearing will continue tomorrow, of course, and today the government justifying its position before the Supreme Court, and also somewhere telling the court that it does not want a powerful combination of 9 judges to hear the bench. It wants to argue this aspect of privacy before a lower composition bench. The Supreme Court disagreed to that request, and therefore we will see the Supreme Court make a final decision on this particular issue of privacy being a part of fundamental right or not. Government caught on the back foot, government in a bind before the top court when it was confronted with a volley of tough questions. Supreme Court wanting to understand as to how in a certain way the government could acknowledge privacy as being part of fundamental right, while on the other hand it argued that the aspect of social welfare will attain dominance. So clearly a lot of debate, a lot of argument throughout the day from 10 in the morning to 4 in the evening, and it is expected to continue tomorrow. Back to you.
Well, here's fundamentally the question. On one hand, we have a government that wants to link your PAN card, your IT returns, your bank accounts, your phone details, and perhaps several other things. There's also been a proposal to link marriage certificates. Now, with marriage certificates also comes your religious information and which religion you follow or believe. The government argues that they need to be able to do all of these things in order to be able to weed out corruption from the system, which is social justice, and in order to be able to hand out government benefits to the people who truly deserve it, which is social welfare. So the question that we're asking, and the question that everyone is going to be examining, including the highest court in the land, is, does our right to privacy supersede, or is it more important than social justice and social welfare? You can, of course, join us and give us your opinion. Our phone lines are open, as well as if you log on to invol.in, and you can quickly type out a response that will automatically pop up on our screen. So if you've had trouble, and I know that some of you have had trouble getting through on our phone lines, this is a great way to get involved in the debate as well. Just use your phone, go to the browser, go to invol.in and type out your response or your question. It will automatically pop up onto the screen. Let me introduce our very learned panel for this evening. To begin with, representing the government, Arvind Gupta, leader BJP. Muhammed Khan is the national spokesperson of the Congress party. Kailash Vasudev, senior lawyer, Supreme Court. Ramakant Gaur, lawyer with the Supreme Court as well. Shailesh Gandhi, former Central Information Commissioner and current RTI activist, a very senior voice. Mishi Choudhary is a technology lawyer, vocal advocate of privacy rights, and the president and legal director of SFLC. Sujay Kantawala is an advocate who joins me in the studio. Prasanna S is a Delhi-based lawyer who does not have an Aadhaar card. I want to open this up to everybody for opening arguments. But first, Sujay Kantawala, if you'd be kind enough to explain to our audience, what is a fundamental right? And why is it important to have the conversation about whether privacy is a right or whether privacy is a fundamental right?
Fundamental rights are rights which are laid down in our Constitution, and every person who is born acquires the fundamental rights. So it is a matter of right, which is given to you by birth. And these rights are inalienable in the sense that they remain with you till you die. But now the 9-judge bench in its historical sitting is examining various definitions. What is social welfare? What is privacy? Is it an absolute right? Is it partial right? And therefore, all these issues, there will be security issues which will come up. Because whether your personal details, if they are leaked, what can be the consequences? And today, from what feeds we are getting in from your reporter, is that the Attorney General had to make certain concessions before the court. And he is the top law officer of the government. So it's very interesting to see how this is going to pan out, because ultimately tomorrow is going to be a critical day. And each judge, from the feeds we are getting, each judge is so alert and vigilant and asking such pertinent questions. We have the highest respect for the majesty of our apex court. And therefore, it will be very interesting to see how the Attorney General is going to react and respond to 9 judges, because that also is an arduous task when you have 9 of the top judges of the country asking you question after question, and very vital questions. So it's very interesting to see how the AG is going to respond, and ultimately how the past judgments are going to get grafted into this ultimate judgment that is going to come. I'm sure the apex court in its wisdom is going to consider all possible parameters that are going to be placed before it, and counsel of the highest caliber are assisting the apex court. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens ultimately.
Well, I want to ask Arvind Gupta of the BJP. Arvind Gupta, obviously the government's interest here is welfare and is social justice. So corruption, weeding out corruption, and being able to provide provide benefits to people without any leakages. Tell us why this is so important at this point, and what the government's plans are. What sort of leakages will you be able to plug? What kind of corruption will you be able to weed out?
See, I think while the debate is going on the in the Supreme Court, the 9-bench is hearing arguments from all sides. I think the question that you ask is very, very relevant and pertinent, because what is the whole issue about technology enabling better governance, helping the citizens at the bottom of the pillar, and likewise to avail benefits, to avail services that they have never been able to do before. And in the return, the government also realizes tax and identifies people who have been duping the system for very, very long. Now, let me explain to you a scenario. Today, there are people who avail of, let's say, a benefit of LPG that has been out there for a while, linked to the Aadhaar direct benefits. And there is pre-Aadhaar regime and post-Aadhaar regime. The pre-Aadhaar regime, there was no way of ascertaining whether this person actually was availing the benefit, whether the person was also availing a benefit in a bordering state, whether this person was actually a real person or not. And so whether there was fakes, duplicates, whether they were eligible or not, all those things were not being met. And that was the first part. The second part was the people who were supposed to get it were also not getting it. And thirdly, the process was not in real time, was nowhere connected using a technology system. Today, first of all, once you avail of this benefit, you cannot go about availing of the same benefit across different states, districts, whatever they may be. Two, the person has to themselves avail the benefit because you certify that I am availing the benefit using your Aadhaar identity system. And three, the money comes directly into your bank account. So all the middlemen who were taking your money that you were entitled to has gone away. So finally, benefits are reaching people that were not, first of all, getting benefits. Two, it's reaching directly to them. So 100 rupees is becoming 100 rupees to them. Not like the previous administrative system of 100 rupees and maybe 15 rupees eventually reaching the beneficiary. So the benefits are amazing. I mean, today you talk about, on the other hand, so this is on the benefits side. Talk about the taxation side. People have, and that's one of the reasons why this debate has been sparked off. There are people who have multiple PAN accounts and they file as maybe, let's say, a person Arvind Kumar and Aravind Kumar in another state with a slightly different address, and they've been gaming the system for many, many years.
So do we know, Arvind Gupta, forgive me for interrupting you, but do we know for sure that Aadhaar is a foolproof system that cannot be gamed in any way? That the Aadhaar system will not be needed to be replaced by a better system somewhere down the line, 10 years down the line? Right, he seems to have lost our audio. We'll get him back. I want to open this panel up right now. I'm going to go first to Prasanna S, who is in Delhi, who tells us that he doesn't have an Aadhaar card. You're not going to be able to file your returns this year, Prasanna. That's illegal. As a lawyer, you should know that.
I don't have Aadhaar card and I have only one PAN card, if that helps.
It doesn't help with your tax returns. You're going to need to get an Aadhaar card.
That remains to be seen. There are different ways in which the 9th June judgment can be interpreted. And we are interpreting in a manner that means that, so there is a partial stay on the provision, that is the proviso. So all those people who do not yet have Aadhaar will be saved by that proviso, and there is no provision in law in which the department can reject such returns that do not quote an Aadhaar number. So, no, but hang on.
So while you're showing off that you know the rules, let me also point out to you that for those people who do not have an Aadhaar functioning right now, they have to submit their application to the Aadhaar to prove that they have at least applied. So you don't seem like you have any intention to apply. So how are you going to do that?
No. In fact, I mean, that is for all other notifications. For the income tax specifically, there isn't such a provision. So under the 139AA, the proviso to 139AA2 that has been stayed is giving protection to people who do not have Aadhaar, and the provision under which the department can reject a return that has a specific definition for a defective return does not include a return that does not have an Aadhaar number. So therefore, so there are interpretations on that law, and there is certainly an interpretation and a reasonable interpretation to take that a return may not be discarded.
Okay, so tell me what your concern is right now with the debate on privacy. Why do you believe that privacy is more important than weeding out corruption or removing leakages from our welfare system?
Yeah, we need to understand. So the 9-judge bench that is hearing now is on the limited question of whether or not privacy is a fundamental right. So the question on privacy being a fundamental right, this is not the first time that has been, the privacy itself has been at stake. We've had nearly 50 years of jurisprudence that has assumed privacy to be a fundamental right and proceeded on that basis. Right. Not just, I mean, this was not, I mean, your reporter mentioned that this was the first time that the Attorney General had somewhat made a few concessions that privacy may be a fundamental right, or that some aspects of privacy may be a fundamental right. In fact, I'd like to remind, so it is not just now, even in this case, there have been affidavits filed in 2011, 2012 and 13, and then there is also an SLP that the UIDAI has filed. UIDAI was then still a part of the government in 2014. Right. Yeah. So that had filed against the CBI, against a Bombay High Court order on the ground that privacy is enshrined under Article 21 of the Constitution. Not just that, even as they were contesting the privacy being a fundamental right in Court 5, in Court 6 of the Supreme Court, they were arguing that privacy is a fundamental right, and in order to save the provision relating to criminal defamation. And we now know that even now, so even as they are contesting the whether privacy is a fundamental right here in Court 1 of the Supreme Court, in Court 2 they are arguing in the WhatsApp case, saying that privacy is a fundamental right. So this is not the first time such a concession has happened. It is just that these are positions that the government is taking in court for the convenience and the context of this specific case. And they have not had an occasion to dispute the nature of the fundamental right of privacy in all these 60 years. What is so special about this case that they want to dispute the very existence of fundamental right of privacy? That's a question that we must be asking the government.
Let me ask Kailash Vasudev this question. Mr. Vasudev, if the court decides that privacy is a fundamental right, what does that mean for us as citizens?
Means a lot. It means that your protections are 100% under the Constitution, and the concept of Article 19 extends to all your basic rights. It becomes very vital at this point of time because all sorts of things are happening. First, you have the electronic media, you have a government decision to take in steps to prevent corruption, to streamline accounts, to bring in all sorts of revenues and everything. If you're guaranteed a fundamental right, the right of privacy, then the government have to rethink its entire working insofar as collection of data is concerned. In the recent past, if you recall, even the provisions of the Right to Information Act was struck down. It was done by a bench of our court. In the Western world, in the Apple world as it is called, they tried their best, the American government tried their best to get information with regard to the data available to them, and the people said, no, we're not releasing any of our data. It's strictly protected and it is for the benefit of our citizens. That's in accordance with the American Constitution. In our system also, my personal view, the fundamental right includes the right to privacy and should be maintained. I mean, on the last occasion on your very channel, I had mentioned that even the king cannot walk into a man's broken home because that is his private area, it is his castle. Hence, the right to privacy is a very vital right and protects us from a lot of people who might to interlope into our rights if there is a breach of the government functioning, of the government data. Therefore, fundamental rights are sacrosanct and they must be maintained as such, is my personal view in these matters.
Shailesh Gandhi, I know that you disagree. And you know, my sense of concern has always been from the fact that we have these large databases that now the government mans with all of our information linked to phone records, linked to income tax, linked to bank accounts, linked to driver's license, perhaps in the future also linked to our marriage certificates. And we've had regular breaches. Regular breaches not because someone has hacked in, but because the people on the inside have uploaded it on websites not knowing how important this data is. So why are you arguing against the right to privacy?
No, I'm not arguing against the right to privacy. Let me explain the nuance that I'm talking of. What we must recognize is right to privacy begins where freedom to publish and freedom to get information ends. There is a tension between these two, and you cannot wish it away. And I'm a little surprised at the fact that this is not something that's been brought out. Statements were made that courts repeatedly have said privacy is a fundamental right. Let me remind everyone The reason why we have a 9-judge bench is because a 6-judge bench and an 8-judge bench of the Supreme Court had said and clearly ruled that privacy is not a fundamental right. So to say that Supreme Court has repeatedly said privacy is a fundamental right, I think is flawed. If I go back to the constitutional debate, Ambedkar wanted privacy to be made a fundamental right. This was discussed and debated, and the Constituent Assembly decided not to make it a fundamental right. So the background is Supreme Court has not repeatedly said this. But also, let's assume for a moment that's a minor problem. The bigger issue is, what is privacy? I would like to go to Article 19(2) of the Constitution, which limits information or the right to expression on issues relating to individual persons to anything that will offend decency and morality. These are the two words. What would that imply? It would imply that what you do in your house is private. Any information about you which would lead to decency and morality being violated is private. But that's the domain of privacy. Beyond that, people are saying my fingerprints are my body, therefore it should not be released. Let's look at a simple thing. My photograph is the best identifier I have. And my photograph is of my body, my face. Have we ever discussed and said we should not allow anyone to publish it on a newspaper?
No, but my marriage certificate.
Fair enough.
Right.
What is so private about your marriage certificate is the question that I'd like to ask.
Okay.
I can
see of technology.
In these days of technology,
you put your personal details.
No, but maybe I might choose not to put my personal details. Facebook doesn't force me.
I'm sorry, it's not a debate about what you and I feel. I think the debate has to be centered around what the Constitution of India says. Okay. Are we saying we want to forget the Article 19(2) of the Constitution? Then let's say so. We are actually talking and discussing of privacy being related to education, related to incomes, related to virtually everything. After the Right to Information Act has come, and in Right to Information, there is a provision which exempts certain kinds of personal information relating to privacy. But there is a acid test that's been provided, which says information which can be provided to Parliament or state legislature shall not be denied to a citizen. That is in the spirit of Article 19(2) of the Constitution.
Let me bring in some more voices. Mohammed Khan, where do you stand? Let's remember here that the entire Aadhaar plan was launched and incubated by the UPA government. Why oppose it so vehemently now?
I'm glad you reminded your viewers that this was the authorship of the Aadhaar rests with the Congress government, the UPA government. And I want to address what the BJP spokesperson was saying a while ago. And I'm reminded of the fact that there is no zeal that rivals the zeal of a new convert. It really heartened me, it really encouraged me to hear him rattling off one after the other the benefits of Aadhaar. But here is where I must make a clear distinction, Faye, between the Aadhaar of the BJP and the Aadhaar put forth by the Congress. The Aadhaar that we put forth was designed, and I think I can speak on this subject because I was one of the officers tasked with implementing it. The Aadhaar that we implemented was designed for service delivery. The Aadhaar that they want to implement is designed for surveillance. And I'll tell you how. Now, while the BJP spokesperson was rattling off his example of LPG subsidies and going on about pensions, I don't think he mentioned pensions, but that's a common example they also give. Did he, if the benefits that he promises are indeed so great and so endearing, then why would I not opt for an Aadhaar myself? If indeed the service delivery mechanism you're proposing is so great an alternative to the mechanism that already exists, and you're talking about direct benefit transfer without naming it, then let me have the option to choose that. For example, Faye, you and I may not want LPG subsidies, so why should we be encumbered with getting an Aadhaar card? You and I, as Prasanna pointed out, may have been filing our income tax returns for decades. But why suddenly now, because the government has decided to make it mandatory, we have to get Aadhaar cards as well? And secondly, to the BJP spokesperson, I also want to say this. Any doubt that remained over your intentions as to whether you wanted it for service delivery or surveillance went right out of the window when your Attorney General stood before the Supreme Court and actually fought against a right to privacy. You have spent the better part of the hearings arguing against a right to privacy. At best, you have agreed to a qualified right to privacy. And shame on you that you're trying to deny your citizens this very basic right. I think, Sway, this mentality is a very dangerous one when it's premised on, oh, if you have nothing to hide, then surely you shouldn't object to this. Then Mr. Arvind Gupta, I didn't interrupt you. Gupta, I didn't interrupt you while you were speaking. Do me the same courtesy.
One at a time, gentlemen, please.
I want to say this, Gupta.
Mr. Gupta, I'll give you a chance to rebut.
If you have nothing to hide, then please give me access to your Twitter password. Please give me access to your Gmail account, because surely you're a model upstanding citizen and have nothing to hide. Your definition of privacy should allow you the confidence to share your details with the public at large.
Let me give, this is out of context really. Arvind Gupta, I'll give you an opportunity to rebut that.
Yeah, I think, let me make a few comments for him. I am very surprised that you were part of the Aadhaar, you said you were part of the Aadhaar implementation team, and today you're speaking for the Congress. Mr. Nilekani fought on a Congress ticket after having been the chairman of Aadhaar. If it was a surveillance tool, did Congress use it as a surveillance tool in 2014 or till 2014? Number one, we never alleged that and we will not. Two, 60 crore people were given Aadhaar card till 2014. You never thought of privacy till then, and today when Aadhaar is actually benefiting the citizens, till then nothing was done using Aadhaar, only people were getting enrolled. And we've been very, very gracious always to acknowledge the effort of UIDAI led by Nandan Nilekani and others to have spearheaded and creating a great digital infrastructure which the country is using now to really bust corruption. So is the Congress party saying that you favor corruption? And I'm very confused when the Congress, when they were in power and implementing it, had laid out the full blueprint for service delivery.
Okay.
And today also, when we are using for effective service delivery, tying it with bank accounts and making it a very powerful digital transformation of the government and the benefits and making sure it reaches the right people, you are trying to say that, this is not about that, this is about surveillance. So I'm actually quite confused with this.
I want to bring in Ramakant Gaur. I just want to make an observation here. This is politics really, because when the UPA brought in the Aadhaar, the BJP vehemently opposed it in the opposition, and now the BJP is pushing Aadhaar, and the Congress party is vehemently opposing it. So this is just how politics functions. Ramakant Gaur, what is the flip side? We had Kailash Vasudev explain to us what will happen if the right to privacy is called fundamental by the Supreme Court. What happens if it is not a fundamental right? Then what happens to all of these things, like our information, our fingerprints, our photographs? How does that affect us as citizens? Ramakant Gaur.
Can I come in here before Mr. Gaur comes in?
Okay, go ahead. Mr. Kailash Vasudev, go ahead.
See, please understand, up to 2014, there was a deadlock between the Congress and the BJP about what the Aadhaar should be. Aadhaar said it's only information gathering. The matter came to the court. It has been pending. At that point of time in 2014, up to then, it was basically your information with your biometrics without a connection to your bank accounts or to your driving license or anything of that sort. So people went voluntarily to say that, look, it's necessary, we'll take it because that's a further form of identity. As of today, there is a sea change in what Aadhaar began with and what we are driving at. Your driving license is monitored under the Motor Vehicles Act. Your gun license is monitored under the Arms Act. Your income tax returns, your permanent account numbers and your details are under the Income Tax Act. Your imports and everything which you do are regulated by the Customs Act. I'm pointing out a few acts to you. Your passports are regulated under the Passports Act. Now, these are all statutory functions. Look at it in the perspective of which an ordinary man sees it. If he violates a gun license, he'll be prosecuted. If there's a driving license violation, he'll be prosecuted. If there is an income tax violation, there'll be prosecution. If there is a passport violation, it will be seized. He'll not be allowed to travel out of the country. So for everything, you have an act under which a particular license is granted to you. You are now trying to consolidate all these into a single body called the unique identity called the Aadhaar. If you have so many acts which regulate you, why should you have an additional position because your information is available and that information not released? The government of India, if it has my passport details, will not put it onto a website to anybody who's going to get the information. These are issues. In Menka Gandhi's 7 judges, this aspect has been considered to an extent when there was a 6 and 8 bench judgment of, of the 50s and 60s. The court made a departure. The court made a departure because it said that a passport is a right. It can be regulated, but not to the extent of denying the 19(1)A rights to the individual. Therefore, if you have everything in the pre-14 situation and the post-14 situation, they're radically different. Therefore, the people are getting their heckles up saying, what's going on? Why should we have this?
Right.
That is the answer.
In fact, let me just point out what our viewers are saying, Mr. Vasudev. Let me point out what our viewers are saying. We had one viewer, I think Nikhil from Delhi, who wrote on Involve. He said, every month, my refund on my LPG goes into somebody else's account because of Aadhaar. I don't know how many other bakras there are. That's what he said. Somebody else said the Aadhaar project is incomplete, insecure. Unsecured, I think, is what he meant. Why doesn't the government accept that? There's a lot of the responses we're getting. They're popping up on our screen. Moham is on the phone line from Madurai. Moham, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
My point is, first of all, I would say the Aadhaar is totally not a required one for a country like India. The thing is, lot of people are put into hardship. See, today's requirement of the common man is food, water, and the basic needs. If Aadhaar will be able to give it, fine. But it won't give. See, it is like, I will tell a simple example. We are using speed breakers. Speed breakers is
So, Mom, let's answer that question. I'm going to take a few more calls and we'll find out whether Aadhaar is actually able to give. You said quite rightly that what people actually want is food and water and basic amenities. Will Aadhaar be able to guarantee us that? Kumar on the phone line from Bangalore. Kumar, go ahead.
Good evening to you, Faye.
Good evening.
I've been trying to ring up earlier also on your earlier programs. This is a very wonderful program that you have brought across. What I wanted to speak is also Aadhaar, you said, was for welfare and social justice and possibly black money, prevention of fraud. But my point is the security and protection of misuse of compromised biometrics from across the geographical borders of India. Like, for example, in the case of a bank account hacking.
Yes.
From across the borders. How are we protected against that? This is my major concern.
Yes.
And I have not been able to get an answer on this from any source.
Well, that's a very fair question. Let's answer the first question. Shailesh Gandhi, you seemed to disagree with the caller who said, how will Aadhaar give us our basic amenities? How can you guarantee that if all of us, and I understand in order to truly have a unique ID, everybody has to get one. But can you then guarantee efficiency through this? Arvind Gupta, I see your hand up. Let Shailesh Gandhi answer this question and I'll come to you.
What Aadhaar can do, because of its, and none of us can deny the fact that there is large-scale corruption, there are large-scale ghost beneficiaries of all kinds of government schemes. It's also a fact that there are probably people with 100 PAN cards who are availing at various things. And it is impossible today for the government to identify these things. 2, what we must recognize is the chances of catching people who are doing wrong.
The government is giving out Aadhaar cards. You will then have a situation where you will have multiple Aadhaar cards.
No, please understand.
Yes.
Aadhaar has a biometric identification. Therefore, it is conceptually. If there is a flaw, I don't know. But conceptually, 2 people will not have the same biometrics, including photograph.
There was a story of a dog that got an Aadhaar card.
Oh, so
how it doesn't even have fingerprints? How does it get an Aadhaar?
Yeah. I'm
because of corruption. So fundamentally, on paper, yes, I agree with you. I completely agree.
Let me explain.
Yes.
A dog getting would be a rare thing. I think we are playing up something. Okay. But the truth is, even fingerprints originally were assumed to be biometric identifiers that 2 people will not have, though some people may have. With the iris, with your photograph, and with your fingerprints, this cannot be matched by anybody else. So the moment I go and try and register myself in another name, it won't happen. What it can do is reduce corruption in terms of income tax evasion, reduce corruption in terms of fake NREGA people, reduce corruption.
Let me bring in Ramakant Gaur. He hasn't spoken up till now. Mr. Gaur, thank you for being so patient and listening to everybody else. I want to understand again. Yes, I'm coming to you, Arvind Gupta. I want to understand, Ramakant Gaur, where you stand in all of this. We talked about this in the past. Right to liberty, right to equality, right to speech. All of these are fundamental. Articles 21, 14 and 19. Somewhere overlapping in all of that is the right to privacy. Do you believe that fundamentally we should have the right to privacy?
Undoubtedly. Globally, right to privacy is a fundamental right. And more particularly, in Indian perspective, it is included in Article 21. That's unabated. Even Attorney General has admitted though or conceded. Only a difficulty arises when you say something and do something else. By way of this Aadhaar Act, you have said that this act is designed for good governance or targeted specific deliveries of certain benefits, subsidies, etc. from the consolidated funds of India. So I, being a citizen of India, have several identity cards made. It is voter ID card and some other cards as well. I don't want any subsidy from the government of India. Why do you want my identity by way of Aadhaar? So you have not inculcated that into the basic design of the act. Basic design of the act says something else. Whereas you, by way of certain regulations, by way of introducing certain rules, you want to take my identity and link it with several other perspectives. As far as I have heard the concern of some of the panelists that this is related to curbing of corruption or income tax evasion, I would humbly submit that as a practicing lawyer for more than 20 years in the realm of economic offences, it would not stop. It has not stopped. By way of demonetization, have you stopped the circulation of cash? Answer is no. Have you stopped the evasion of income tax? Answer is no. The cases of Money Laundering Act and under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act have been burgeoning. So it has not made any effect.
Right. Okay. I also have, that's a fair point. I also have Mishi Choudhary on the phone line, technology lawyer, advocate of privacy rights. Mishi Choudhary, if you want to weigh in on this entire conversation of bringing down corruption, making the system more efficient, giving up our right to privacy in return.
I think the problem is of this binary choice that in order to bring down corruption, we have to give up our right to privacy. Correct. The idea here is that for a particular purpose, a lot of information is being gathered. And what started as something which was going to be voluntary and only limited to perhaps 7 public distribution schemes has now got into this mission creep about this is a panacea, it's going to solve all our problems. As the gentleman earlier also said, that there are many citizens who definitely have other forms of identification. The problem here is every time a government tries to do something in public benefit, the test which the Supreme Court also applies is, or the law applies is, that it has to be fair, reasonable, and there has to be a reason why you're doing it. If Aadhaar was only limited to a few things, as it was initially designed for, then it is fine. And thereafter also, we would like some statutory protection about the data is secure.
Yes.
There is some kind of a damages scheme. Tomorrow, if somebody takes my data, leaks it, or it actually travels, and some wrongful act is committed, I, as a citizen, should have a very simple way of saying, you violated my right, give me some damages, and put me in a condition where
in fact, Mishi Choudhary, it's not even a question of giving you damages. Right now, if there is a breach of your Aadhaar data, you aren't even in a position to file the complaint. The authority, the UADI, is the only one who can file the FIR. You don't have the ability to file the complaint under the Aadhaar Act right now.
Exactly. There were 3.2 million debit cards which were compromised very recently in India. And what we've seen is that there's not even been an FIR for it, let alone an investigation about what's really going on. What is now happening is that the citizens should not be caught about something. It's not a political issue. It's not about X party or Y party. No matter who is into power, the citizens should have justiciable rights, which means that first thing is to recognize that there is a right to privacy, which is against the state. Once that's recognized, the government will be under a positive obligation to say, now we are going to also come up with laws in order to control how data is shared between various databases. Not anybody should have access to whatever
Absolutely. And let me just take this question. Let me take this question back to Arvind Gupta. Arvind Gupta, I just Googled very rudimentally Aadhaar privacy breach. And it pops up details of over 1 million Aadhaar numbers published on a Jharkhand government website. This is also because the people handling this information, like I said, aren't aware of how they should be treating the information. So it comes back to the same thing. And I think it's interesting. All of the arguments that the citizens are giving us at this point is, tell me how you'll keep my information safe and then I'll give it to you. Unfortunately, the government has not been able to assure us that our information will be safe. And that's the fundamental problem.
Okay, can I take some time to respond to a few issues that have been raised?
Please.
Number one is that the caller who had called raised issues about would Aadhaar give us more water, more electricity. Well, it is not a question of, and Mishi then says we should not make binary choices. That's something I agree with her. You know, this is not a or world, it's an and world. And when I say this, what you have to appreciate is while their physical infrastructure of water, electricity, sanitation, all has to be built and will keep going on, there is a fundamental need of having more revenues, tax revenues, also on the other hand. So, and Aadhaar definitely helps in making sure that the duplicacy that people are using to game the system goes away. So that is one of the big things that the Aadhaar opponents by itself, and I am not confusing myself with the privacy debate, I am restricting myself to the Aadhaar debate, is that the use of technology like Aadhaar helps find people who have been gaming the system, evading taxes, but doing many other ways of not paying the due to the nation. So that's definitely going to increase tax collection going forward. And again, the gentleman talked about demonetization. I just want to comment on that.
But okay, so I'm going to let you finish what you're saying. But Arvind Gupta, quick rebut from me, please.
But can I complete this?
Just one. I just want to ask you, add one more thing so you can respond to all of it before we move.
You'll have to bear me out.
No. So just one thing, sir. One thing. My point is, have we had a problem in tax collection up till now because of multiple PAN cards or because of Swiss bank accounts and because of people who actually pay each other in cash, because of people who actually collect money in black, because of people who actually demand bribes for every job that needs to be done in a government office? Is it really multiple PAN cards that is our problem as far as corruption is concerned? And can we solve that with Aadhaar? Because it's intention really that we need, not technology.
No. See, again, yeah, so hold on. It is not the question of that. When you start linking Benami accounts, bank accounts, you stop corruption, you stop accumulation of black money. People have to understand that. And people, there is a lot of Benami accounts that exist, bank accounts that exist which hold a lot of money. Now, coming to the second point, let me explain to you how, when you have some amount of tax money coming in, how you do targeted benefits. And we have debated a lot, so I won't comment on it, that you do duplicate and fake and, multiple people availing the same benefit. The important two debates which are getting not addressed here is the issue that you talked about, 1 million people having their Aadhaar number disclosed on a government website. Number one, that was incorrect. I must clearly say that. Two,
chairman admitted to that.
There was a challenge, I think, of those government schemes in debating between transparency and privacy. A government order has since been issued that numbers, if they have to, in the interest of transparency, should be masked. so that they can put an XXX over certain critical fields, so that both things are balanced out. Transparency versus privacy.
So actually, my question,
the caliber of the people in the government offices,
and my question is the same thing,
Sujay. Is the safety of data.
Has the problem been that we don't know who's gaming the system, or the problem is we've never done anything about the people who are gaming the system? And Arvind Gupta, I'll ask you a very straightforward question. If we believe that the Aadhaar system, like Shailesh Gandhi said, is foolproof, which means that I can only have one card, I cannot have multiple cards, I cannot issue farzi Aadhaar cards, will the government then replace the voter ID with the Aadhaar card at some point? Maybe before 2019? Why not?
No. Yeah, see, that is also now you are coming to an area where I have a personal lot of interest in.
You need 11 judges for that.
Yeah, can I comment on that as a question?
Yeah, Shailesh Gandhi. No, you're going to say I'm going off point, but it's a fair point.
Complete confusion. The Aadhaar is only an individual identifier. It was never meant to be a citizen identifier.
But fair enough. But if you're saying that we'll weed out all of the corruption in all of the systems, including it was never meant for PAN card cleaning up. Let's clean up the voter ID problem as well.
Aware of the statements made by his leaders. He isn't aware of the statements made by the UID chairman. The UID chairman has acknowledged the problem.
Actually, if you ask me, that's very futuristic
before the Supreme Court of India.
That's a very futuristic.
I'm amazed and surprised that nobody is even considering the issue of 19.2. Article 19.2 limits
push those aside.
What limits you can put on publishing and on right to information. Without that, a discussion on privacy is futile.
So tell us what that means.
What it means is only things that offend decency and morality, as the Constitution of India stands, can be denied in terms of publication, in terms of right to information. If you extend the benefits of privacy in this manner, for example, there is this talk of Aadhaar being a violation of privacy. Does it offend?
So you're saying the only violation of privacy, the only thing that should not be published or should not be asked for is if it is in some way offensive to decency.
And, for example, what I do in my house, to do with my sexual preferences, and these are part of Supreme Court judgments. I'm not bringing it up.
Open the door of your house and go in, then that's a threat.
The discussion on privacy has become a very ambiguous kind of thing. Anything that I don't want to give becomes privacy. That's not the way you can go about it, and it has to be restricted by the Constitution of the country.
So you believe, and I'm just going to ask this question. I saw that Prasanna put his hand up, because I know that you're fighting also for privacy here. How does Aadhaar violate privacy?
On Mr. Shailesh Gandhi's point, I have immense respect for him. So I'm slightly embarrassed at rebutting one of his points. So Aadhaar is the converse of RTI. The RTI movement is to have the state accountable to the citizens. And Aadhaar is actually making the citizens accountable to the state. Right. You look at all the premises that Mr. Arvind Gupta argued on. This is a nation of fakes, ghosts, and duplicates. All of it that needs to be reined in. That is the premise under which this debate is, that he has begun the debate. And that's a premise that we can't, we cannot take. It's a ridiculous premise, right? And this point on privacy versus right to information and transparency, I understand there is an issue, but we need to make it clear that a claim of a right to information and a claim of privacy are two private claims which can be balanced on a case-to-case basis.
Let me just give you an example, in fact, of what citizens are saying right now. Koteshwar in Bhopal is saying data is being given to private entities like Reliance. Is it safe? How do I know that the government is safeguarding? Dr. Tariq says, what is the rationale behind linking phone numbers to Aadhaar? All of this information. And, Mishi Choudhary is still on the phone line. Mishi Choudhary, at some point, the government should be open to cleaning up the voter ID system, and all of us have one fingerprint. We should only all have one vote. And if the government is truly serious of removing corruption, they should table a proposal to clean up voter IDs as well. Don't you think, Mishi Choudhary?
The government definitely has an obligation to clean up system and also do things for corruption. But thinking that Aadhaar is a panacea for all problems is not going to actually solve all these problems. We have now started to think We collect everybody's biometrics, put it in a database, then connect all databases together, and that's somehow going to make everything efficient. Please remember, totalitarian regimes are also efficient. We know everything about every citizen. That somehow seems very attractive. That way we will be able to catch all criminals. But there is a flip side to it also. What is happening right now, and I'm really sorry why this debate is only about Aadhaar. It's not. Right to privacy is a much larger thing right now. In our age of the internet, the right to be left alone includes that I should not be exposed involuntarily. Look at social profiles, the cashless economic transactions, the damages which happen in terms of how when our personal liberties are compromised. China has a social graph about people, which means you can actually rate people about what they do. If the government doesn't approve of something, then your rating goes down.
Yes.
This is like a Black Mirror episode. Now, what if we only think about this as whether Aadhaar is good or Aadhaar is bad?
Right. So you're saying the argument needs to be wider. We have to wrap up this conversation as we continue to keep an eye on what's happening at Supreme Court. The government has yet to assure us. The government is yet to assure us that the information that we are handing over to the people manning the Aadhaar system is completely secure, because they themselves are uploading it onto the website. I mean, you're giving it when you have to hand it over when you book a train ticket. Are the people, in your experience as a viewer at home, sitting at the counters booking train tickets, are those people really fully understanding the caliber of the information that they're getting when they get those many Aadhaar cards? The number of phone calls we have all received over the last few weeks telling us, oh, you need to link your bank account to your Aadhaar card, call it up over the phone and we will get it done for you. Those are all fraudulent phone calls. There are people mining our Aadhaar information right now. And the fact that the government of Jharkhand has uploaded 1 million Aadhaar numbers onto its website, this all makes us believe that the government is not ready. And if you're not ready, why push? First, get ready. Figure out what privacy is, get privacy laws in place, get the best, the smartest minds in the country to man and train your entire system of people who are handling this information to truly be able to handle it well. Like the income tax department handles PAN cards, and perhaps better than that as well. And until and unless the government is fully ready to link voter IDs to Aadhaar and actually biometrically scan our fingerprints before we vote to make sure that the voting system is no longer being gamed, we will refuse to believe that you actually want to clean up any system, because that is the system that will truly need to be cleaned up if you're serious about removing corruption. And that is the place where Aadhaar will come most in handy, not anywhere else. So unless you're willing to do that, we don't know how serious you are about cleaning up the system. In the meantime, we place our faith in the Supreme Court and the 9-judge bench that is actually hearing right now whether or not we deserve to have the right to privacy. Thanks for watching.